Being a good leader is like being a good carrot farmer. Any schmo can come along and throw some seeds in the dirt, then sit back and wait for something to grow. But how those carrots look and taste will be a direct reflection on how much love, care and attention went into their growth. A good carrot farmer, though, will cultivate the environment around those seeds. They'll sift the soil, water them regularly, and take out any obstacles underneath the ground. And as a result, when they harvest, they usually get strong, straight, plump and tasty carrots. Our guest today, Brendan Rogers, believes that good leaders, like good carrot farmers, create an environment where people they are leading can flourish, and that the time taken to nurture the people around you results in a better end product. Host of the Culture of Leadership podcast, Brendan leads by example. He's an old school good bloke. He's generous, a reliable father, a good husband, and just a nice guy to chat to, which we're about to find out right now. Brendan Rogers, welcome to Everyday Greatness. Thank you for joining us.
Barnaby, thank you very much for having me. I was a little bit worried about the intro, but I'm honoured to be introduced in that way. The only thing I think my wife may dispute some of those last comments you made about good father, good husband, those sorts of things. But anyway, we'll leave that judgment alone.
Let's find out. So have you ever grown carrots? And what did they or would they taste like if you did?
I think they wouldn't taste that great. I've never grown carrots myself. I don't even know how to grow carrots. But interestingly, I have been involved in bonsai over the years.
Yep.
I'm not currently in charge of any bonsai trees, but I do love bonsai. I love the intricacies of it. I love the process attached to it. And it's something that I will get back into at some stage in the future, whatever that looks like. It's like anything, it's balancing your time and priorities, right? So it's not something I feel I can put the right effort into at the moment. I've never tried bonsaiing a carrot, but maybe after today's show, I think it's something I should consider.
Could be a new trend. Your new leadership, your new podcast might be called The Culture of Bonsai Carrots.
Why not, mate? Why not?
So,
what I do love, though, is that I guess, again, just thinking around that carrots, it's what carrots grow under the ground, right? So even when we talk about leadership, it's sort of what's happening beneath the surface around those things. So I'm not sure if you meant that.
There you go. You are picking it up.
That's good. That's good.
Let's keep going with the metaphor then. Can you have good culture at an organisation without good leadership?
Can you have good culture in an organisation without good leadership? The simple answer, in my view, is no.
Yep.
Now, if you want me to expand on that a little bit more.
Yes, please.
The culture is a reflection of leadership. That's a quote I heard many, many years ago. I don't remember who said it, but if you think about that, it is the ultimate leader. And if you're talking about an organisation, it's that CEO type. So for the Swannies, Tom Hartley, he's setting the standard. There's a behavioural standard in that. There's those how we talk to each other, how we respect each other, how we honour the values in our organisation. If the leader's ultimately doing those things and clear around what they are and setting the tone, then that will flow through the organisation. So the ultimate leader, and whether that's leading of a specific team, leading of a business, leading of a sporting team, whatever that is, they will set the tone for what's acceptable and what's not acceptable.
Yep. So what makes a good leader? What are the attributes that a good leader has that other leaders don't?
This is something I have pondered for many, many years.
Yep.
And I've come up with my own theory. For me, leadership is three fundamental things. Like anything, they're simple to understand, but the challenge is in the application.
Yeah.
So the three components for me of leadership is people who are very deliberate about developing their character, and I can expand on what this means as we go through. Developing character, people who are focused on building their competence, and specifically in this case, competence around leadership, and also people who are very deliberate around creating connection. So those three C's is what drives a lot of what I do: character, competence, and connection. And for me, we link back to this show, Everyday Greatness, leaders are everywhere. Okay, we shouldn't just look at leaders as people who are leading an organisation. You know, they're leading a family, they're leading a community area, they're leading their friendship group, they're doing all sorts of different things. But it's these things that are happening every day that they're developing themselves, their character, trying to be better human beings, just better everyday people. The competence that comes with whatever they're doing, whether that's a technical competence, whether that's some leadership competencies, whether it's around meetings or how we have tough conversations and deliver feedback and all these sorts of things that get bundled up into the leadership space. And the connection. I mean, most of the time you remember people and how they've connected with you, how they made you feel. There's that saying, don't remember what you've said, but how they make you feel. And that's a connection piece. Those three together, if you get those in balance and continue work on those, then to me, that's great leadership.
Far out, that's a good answer. You would be a good carrot farmer.
So you reckon I should be doing carrots now instead of
get rid
leadership?
of the podcast. So in today's world, who are the leaders that impress you in any field, not just corporate, but as you said, community?
I'm so glad that both yourself and Scott gave me some time to prepare around these questions, like to give me some idea of what the podcast was going to be about and the direction you wanted to take it. For myself and my wife are actually part of a foster care community. So we're foster parents. And everyday greatness I see through that community. These are people on the ground who are doing stuff to help little people.
Yeah.
And little people can be babies, weeks old. They can be older children up to 21 in New South Wales. So, it is a challenging environment to work in, to help. But these people they have no choice but to develop their character. They have to be better people. They have to understand themselves better, because if they don't understand themselves, that can trigger reactions, which is not always healthy when you're dealing with stressful situations with family, with the child who has some challenging behaviours, those sorts of things. The competence that you build in that leadership basket of foster caring is getting to understand the intricacies of how little minds work, how behaviour may be impacted based on their environment that they've come from. There's a whole level of competence, which my level of competence in that is quite low. It's something that I'm really passionate about learning more and more about now, because to me that makes me better in my role with people today. My level of curiosity today, even compared to 2 to 3 years ago before we started caring for young ones, is at a whole different level. I like to try to be more curious than judgmental, but geez, that's bloody hard.
Yeah.
Today, I feel so much more comfortable. I'm not perfect, no one is, but I feel so much more comfortable about doing that. And then the connection piece, which I mentioned earlier, and think about that in relation to leaders and foster carers, they have to build connection with these little people, because that's what creates the safe space for them. They have to try and build the best connection they can with the parents, because ultimately, I've not met a parent that still doesn't love their child.
Yeah.
They can have different ways of showing that, absolutely, maybe different to what you and I might expect, but there is still a connection, and you do have to be curious, not judgmental, in order to create those connections. You have to build connections with caseworkers. You have to build connections with government organisations, with healthcare workers. There's so much wrapped in that space, and it's an unbelievably challenging space as well, because it's a big system, and believe me, it doesn't work perfectly. There's lots of busted things in that system, but geez, it's a good challenge, and it's something that these carers just get out of bed every day. I'm sure most people in society aren't thinking about foster carers, and I've taken on myself. I don't know where this is going to go and what this is going to look like, but I feel like I've got the opportunity to be a bit of an advocate for foster carers at some stage in the future, and now, but what that looks like in the future, I'm not sure.
Yeah. That answer, and I don't know if you realise it, but that just encapsulated the modern world we live in. I asked you to name a good leader. You didn't drop one name. Society has become so focused on measuring things. If you want good culture, you've got to be able to measure it. But it's a really intangible thing to measure. So what do you think is the most important thing for a successful group, a business or a sporting group or a community group, to be successful? Is it good leadership or a good culture they need more than the other one?
I like to say, so the work that I do, I focus on people, the individual person or the people in a group, in a team. So I look at better people make better leaders lead better teams, and better teams create better culture. So just by that process, and I'm quite a process-orientated person, just by that, if I go back to the individual leader or the leaders that have influence, hopefully used in the right way within their organisation, within the friendship group, within the community organisation they're part of, whatever they are involved in, if they're helping themselves become better people, then they will lead better. They will create and lead better teams, and that ultimately, always the output of that is a better culture. Not a perfect culture, but certainly a much better one than where it started.
Speaking of the evolution of good people, my co-host Scott Gibbons, one of the great people on earth, would like to ask you a few questions. So I'll throw to Scotty.
You betcha. Brendan, terrific meeting you. Now, tell me.
And you, mate.
You're into leadership. What's your background?
My background is in one of the sexiest industries ever known to man, global shipping.
Seriously? Man.
So I say that to everyone.
So you're the one who imports all those sexy toys? And
I have done.
Yes.
I have done. So who leaves school and says, I can't wait to get into shipping? I've never met a person, and I wasn't like that either.
Whatever floats your boat.
It is something that I fell into, but that industry was unbelievably fascinating. The opportunities I got to work with different people, to understand different people of different cultures, different languages, different perspectives. I spent probably the first 3 to 5 years more involved in the day-to-day shipping side of things. So cutting my teeth, I suppose, on how this industry works. And then I got the great opportunity to start to be involved in some groups and do some workshop type stuff before I started leading people. And then I got an opportunity to lead people and be involved in larger style improvement type projects. I'm really passionate about excellence and continuous improvement, whether that's personally or process driven, and leading large projects like that, leading large teams, both local, statewide, national-wide, international-wide. It was just a great learning ground, and most of the time I felt very, very supported in that journey as well. There were times when I didn't feel supported, and we had challenges as people I was working with or people I was reporting to, and those sorts of normal everyday things, but they're also good learning experiences as well.
So did you have a big crew underneath you?
So the largest team I had was about 50 people. Again, I was the manager of the customer service of the Australian Customer Service Unit.
Customer service?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, customer experience, customer service. If I did that job today, would I do so many things differently? Absolutely. But fundamentally, I had a care for people. What I didn't know about leadership at the time, I learned, and I had to be very, very self-reliant on that journey. I learned from some really good people in the early days, and I think the older style leaders, to me, they felt like they had more of a care for people, and that just underpinned everything. Scott, if you feel like I've got a care for you, I know a bit about you, I understand what you love doing, and just some personal aspects, like you actually feel like a real person, or you feel like I make you feel like a real person, then I can screw up from time to time, and you're not going to try and hang me or drag me over the coals. And that's what I think the older style leaders do better than probably a lot more of the leaders today. And environment plays an impact on that, and organisational pressures and stuff like that, but it's still people making decisions ultimately about how they act and operate.
That's beautiful. To make you feel like a real person, that's leadership. That is
Absolutely.
leadership.
Absolutely. And to me, that is what makes people great every day. If you can leave people with them feeling like they are special and it's just a moment, or you get the opportunity to spend more time with people and that builds and that's genuine and authentic, like
that's it.
What more do you need to do?
So you were saying that if you were to do that role today as against then, you would change things?
I would be more deliberate about the building competence in my leadership. And I'll use a couple of examples. Meetings are always, for me, a really good example because most people resonate fantastically well with terrible meetings that they have in organisations. Why do we have to have another meeting? I want to get some real work done, sort of stuff. I've said it. And unfortunately, I've led lots of meetings that have been pretty crappy based on what I now know. But so understanding around meetings, what makes a good meeting, knowing that you can have a good meeting, and that could be a one-on-one style meeting around performance type conversation, a positive performance conversation. It can be more of a one-on-one about learning and growth. How do we help you move to the next level? It's also how we lead team meetings and how we bring individuals together to become a group that can form into a team because we're focused on a common goal and a common good and moving something forward. And we can have those sort of challenging conversations without getting personal. Scott, I don't like you. And I'm start saying things like that. Seems a bit extreme, but hey, I've seen that in the workplace where people say, like, I don't care what you say, you're a knob.
And sometimes they're right.
Look, sometimes they are, but ultimately in my world, I never believe that people wake up in the morning wanting to be a knob. Yeah. They don't wake up in the morning and say, oh, Scott, I can't wait to do a bad job today. I didn't wake up this morning and said, I'm going to come in all the way into Sydney, into this beautiful arena here we are today, and say, I can't wait to be the worst podcast guest ever. It did not enter my mind. What entered my mind is that I respect both of you. I've only met Scott today. I've known Barnaby for many, many years, but only more recently actually met face to face. Have huge respect for the work you guys are doing. So I'm going to put my preparation into that because there's a level of respect I have for that. And to me, most people operate like that, but they don't always know.
That's leadership again, where you've actually pre-thought what you're doing rather than just
absolutely
being so busy that, oh, mate, I'll just wing it. No, that's lovely that you've done
part of that. Again, I don't want to. Again, it's about being curious and understanding people's personalities and those sorts. My personality dictates that I would need to do that, even though I've done interviews before and I love having conversations around these sort of topics with great people. But I still need to prepare. I still want to make sure that I understand everyday greatness. I understand Barnaby. I feel like I know Scott because I've heard this voice several times over the airwaves. But so how can I answer in a way that's actually relevant to what everyday greatness is about? And how can I answer relative to what I think the listeners who listen to everyday greatness might be about? That to me is, again, creating that connection piece. You've got to be able to connect, because some people that didn't connect with this early in the piece, then they probably switched off by now. And I'm sorry that I didn't connect with you, but you cannot connect with everyone as well. You've got to be comfortable with that.
Yeah. But there's something about you and about leadership is that you can lead a team of 60 or bigger, or hold classes or conferences, keynote, whatever it be. But at the same time, you're talking about leadership to a foster care child. And that says so much about you, that you can look at a child or a cluster of people in an auditorium. So with the foster care child, one of the charities that I love to help is called Foster Care Angels. Lovely people. Oh, they are gorgeous people. So I understand part of that foster world, and for you to have that intensity and drive and compassion within you is just a gorgeous thing. It's just an absolutely wonderful thing for you. And then what an individual to go from foster care children through to bonsai, through to corporations, through to podcasting.
And he hasn't even done carrots yet.
They're coming.
So tell us about your podcast. What's it all about?
So, excuse me, the podcast is called The Culture of Leadership. We have released, I think it's been 106 episodes now. We've got about 112, 113 recorded. We're very privileged. We're booked out as far as guests go we're booked out until early 2024. So we've sort of extended the schedule a little bit. So we feel very fortunate that people are encouraged to come onto our show, and we seem to get good interest in the show. It's fundamentally about having conversations to try and help people feel more confident in their leadership. And a lot of the time we're doing that through shared experiences. And to me, that's a little bit like what you guys are doing today. I've got a view of the world based on my experiences, based on my interaction with the world and people in the world. And that's what we try and do fundamentally through the Cultural Leadership Podcast. We do have elements of those conversations which are a little bit more, can I say, that competence focused around leadership. It might be, how do we have better meetings, or how do we have these tough conversations, even how we interview better and what we should be doing around that sort of space, and how we should consider what good behaviour looks like, i.e. values, versus what it doesn't look like. What do we see as our values? Because I had a conversation with a leader yesterday, just through the normal sort of one-on-one coaching process I'm doing weekly with clients. And I can't remember the exact comment she made, but we were fundamentally talking about behaviours that she values. So the week before, what I asked her to do is, who are 3 people in your network that know you really well? So her dad, her husband, and there was a girlfriend, and there was another mentor of hers that she's meeting in a couple of weeks. And I just say, hey, if you were to ask those people to give you 3 words that what they really love about you as a person, what would they say? So we unpack that a bit. And then we start talking that process through with her and how she's interpreted what they've said. Okay, some of that she's got clarification through the conversation, but she's interpreted that a certain way, and I'm just scribbling down notes, and then I flip it on her head. So what does this worst employee look like that you've worked with or had? It was a pretty extreme example she shared, but anyway, it was a good one, and we unpacked that. So the opposite of what she values is what she doesn't value and what makes a bad employee. And then we related that to, okay, what does the best employee look like that you've got? And we started to talk through that. Fundamentally, there was this whole basket of behaviours that she valued in the space of 45 minutes to an hour, which were values, behaviours that were her organisation, because she's the leader in the organisation. What we just have to do, and the moral of the story is we all have these things. What we just don't do is take some time or get some help from somebody who can help them take time to articulate. And if you can do that, then the world becomes such an easier place, because it's like the Sydney Swans. I'm not a fan of the Swans. They're not my team. I apologize. I didn't have the heart to ask if there's a Brisbane Lions shirt for sale here, but I thought, why start on a bad foot? I'll do that at the end when I'm walking out.
I'd ask that when you're on the ground floor.
Yeah, exactly. But look, the Sydney, where I absolutely have huge respect for someone like the Swans, is that they were involved with, and still are, as far as I know, involved with a team, organisation called Leading Teams. And Leading Teams is an organisation run out of Melbourne, a guy called Ray McLean, and I think Paul Roos has a fantastic relationship with Ray. And it's fundamentally around articulating what behaviours this organisation values.
Yeah.
And then having genuine conversations around those behaviours and values. And that's just taking the time to articulate. When you've got that, there's a standard of what's acceptable and not acceptable, and then have conversations around it. Hey, Scott, when you did this, that was bloody awesome, mate. Keep doing that, because that lives our values and the behaviours that we love to see here. Absolutely. Scott, what you did yesterday, I didn't want to have a chat to you yesterday because it was in the public forum, but when you said that to that client, actually, can you help me understand how you think that relates to the behaviours that we accept here? Oh, okay, that's interesting. Look,
yeah,
I take that as a little bit differently. I think it's maybe a bit more this way. Let's try and get some clarity around that. What would you do next time in that situation? Oh, okay, now I've got some clarity. I might do this. That to me is a very respectful conversation. It's not having a personal attack at yourself. It's just saying, this is the situation. This is what I saw. This is my understanding of the values and what we believe we value here, and what we articulated we value here, and then have a conversation around it. Yeah. That's culture. That's leadership. That's behaviours. Do that enough times, you'll have a much better organisation than what you've got today.
True. Now, just bypassing some of that, you're also very involved in LinkedIn. So tell me a bit more about that. So
it's called LinkedIn Local, and it's not something that myself and my co-host created, but a lady in Coffs Harbour, Anna McAfee, she just did some hashtag one time on LinkedIn pre-COVID days, and basically it'd be great to turn some online connections to offline. Let's link in at a cafe somewhere. So I was running networking events on the Central Coast for a period of time, and I have to say, compared to now, they were unsuccessful. They weren't coming together the way that I wanted them to come together, which was more about building community. LinkedIn Local was very much about community, and I made it more about speaker to bring people in. That works, that's good, but the community can't feed itself when they're coming for someone. They're not coming for each other. LinkedIn Local enabled us to do that. It enabled us to rebrand, change the focus. It enabled me. I was driving the previous networking event myself, and I had 2 guys that were very consistent and I built friendships with. It created an opportunity for us to work together under the LinkedIn Local thing, because again, it wasn't about me. It was about how do we make this a self-sustaining community, and that's what we've done. And it's been going since 2018, and it's a strong community. It's a community of trusted business connections, and I like to say it's a community of advocates for each other if you use it in the right way.
Gee, that's good. LinkedIn Local, that's on the Central Coast.
LinkedIn Local Central Coast.
Barnaby, I know you've got some questions.
I'm burning. I've got one in particular.
What have I said
It's
that
not
hurts?
about carrots. So you've had a lot of staff over the years in your various roles. Besides Mark Charette, who is your all-time favourite staff member?
This was very tough. My personality disorder dictates that I try to be fair, and in that, there's many people. I've been so fortunate to learn and to work with so many great people. There's one lady that stands out to me, and I would not know where she is today, but her name was Cheryl, and she was in one of my teams that I was involved with, and as I was leading, she gave me some feedback one day, and that feedback has stuck with me forever. And it was just a genuine, honest conversation. And she said to me, Brendan, you know when you write your emails, like, they don't come across as nice as who you are.
Wow.
I'm like, okay, tell me more. and bearing in mind, so I was the head of that was the customer service and documentation organisation. So again, spread across Australia. So she was at a different level, but like kudos to her. And I sort of like to think, okay, it was fantastic to think that somebody could come to me, because again, there is a power dynamic.
Yeah.
That's the reality of organisation. She came to me and she gave me this feedback. She said, your emails don't come across as friendly as what you are. Okay, tell me some more. And it was pure and simply, I would start my emails with Scott, da-da-da-da, Barnaby, da-da-da-da.
Yeah.
She said, why don't you just try dear or hey or somewhere that's doesn't feel so abrupt. And I'm like, that's cool.
Yeah.
And simple, genuine conversation. And so I don't remember Cheryl for her work. She was a great worker. I remember her for her honesty and what she shared with me. And that moment, how many times do we write emails every day?
Yeah, plenty.
Every single time I start an email, I think of Cheryl.
Yeah.
How good is that?
Yeah.
And this person, this lady, I've told her that's impactful, but I don't think she would even know today how impactful that one bit of honest feedback and genuine conversation is.
She will now when she hears it on the podcast.
Look, I hope so. And I will seek her out after when this is out, and I will send it to her and say, hey, Cheryl, I really want, because this is how you've changed my life. And isn't that everyday greatness?
That
like
is.
She's just done something. She's had the courage, the boldness to step up and say, hey, you know what, this is who you are in person, and this is how I interpret your emails. I'm not sure. And you know what, that was about 15 years into my corporate life. And for most of my corporate life, email was around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the first time anybody has ever said that to me, but I reckon it wouldn't have been the first time somebody has thought that.
Yeah. I must apologise to my cousin Shay Wittig. I left that as an open platform to say she was your favourite employee.
So,
Cheryl, I'm sure you're great, but my cousin Shay, I apologise. You missed out.
The
Gotta work harder
reality
next
is
time.
I was wondering if there was a lead to this, right? Now, what I have to say is I would have said Shay, but the reason I haven't said Shay is because she's not working for the culture of leadership anymore. She made a decision to move on and leave me, and now she's dead to me.
All right, so, all right, so we'll take those as a lesson.
and-
You leave, you're done.
How's that for good leadership?
Yeah, that's awesome.
In saying that, I did say the exact same words to her, and we have a fantastic, she is godmother to our own children, as is Richard. So we have a fantastic relationship, and I would take her back in a heartbeat, but she's got other priorities at the moment, and that's where she needs to spend her time.
Good recovery. Now, let me ask you a bit more
Shay.
about your podcast. You've had some very wise, intelligent, funny, and good-looking guests on your podcast over the years. Who have you got coming up soon?
There's some good ones. There's a guy called Cameron. I can't remember his last name now, but I have never met Cameron. I've had a couple of conversations with him. He was introduced to me through a previous guest, and he was making his way in the rugby league world and was on a very good development pathway road. I think started to play some reserve grade and was onto some good things as a young fellow. And he a little bit similar to your story, had an accident. This was a car accident, and has now been living his life as a quadriplegic for a long time. So they're the sorts of stories that he's doing amazing things in his space and out there with people. Like, they're the things that just, they give me goosebumps.
Inspire.
Like, there's so many great guests that we get to have a conversation with and to learn from. But that's one where those sort of stories come out that I just like, I can't wait to have a conversation with Cameron.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. And just give your podcast a plug. Where can people listen to it?
Mate, we're probably a bit like Everyday Greatness. We're podcast tarts. You can find us anywhere, really, whether it's sort of Apple, Spotify. The Culture of Leadership is also on YouTube, on the Culture of Leadership YouTube channel. So pretty much anywhere where you're listening to your podcast, or if you like to watch some of the visual side of the podcast, then you can also watch on YouTube.
The
Sounds
Culture
awesome.
of Leadership.
Culture of Leadership. Yeah. Subscribe, Scotty.
Yeah.
We might have to leave it there, Brendan, but thank you so much
It
for
sounds
joining
like
us.
one of these good-looking guests that I might have coming into the future might have to be Scott.
Yeah.
I reckon he'd have some stories to share, wouldn't he? I've checked out
He's
some of
got
his
stories.
background.
A lot of them can't be told in public, but he's got some good stories.
Very quiet little fella. But we've got to go. We've got to say thank you to Brendan Rogers.
It's been an absolute
don't forget
pleasure.
Culture of Leadership podcast. Make sure that you listen into that too. But thanks, Brendan, for joining us. It's been really nice having a chat with a really, really good bloke. And thank you to the ARA Group. The ARA Group have been supporting us, sponsoring us for 6 years in a row. They're our major sponsor, and we've got to thank them. But we've got to thank you also for listening, because we hope you've been able to get something out of what Brendan has told us today. And one of the great things that Brendan has told us is just be real, be a good bloke, be a good person, be a good woman, just be good. So you can listen to Everyday Greatness next week, and we'll continue today's conversation with Chris Tyrrell. Chris is the Chief Operating Officer of Tyrrell's Wines, and we'll be speaking to Chris about how, when sometimes people say people and organisations are so close, they feel like family, it's because they actually are. And we hope you can join us for that one. But if you want to find out more about the show, then just go to the Everyday Greatness page at barnabyhowarth.com.au. That's barnabyhowarth.com.au, or just follow us on Facebook or Instagram or YouTube or LinkedIn. So what's your LinkedIn thing, Brendan? What's
LinkedIn
your
Local Central Coast.
LinkedIn Local Central Coast. So you can follow Brendan on that. But thanks again for listening today. You are terrific. I'm Scott Gibbons, Barnaby Howarth. We're signing off
Thank you,
now.
Brendan.
And
Thank you
thank you,
all.
Brendan Rogers.
Pleasure.